to another episode of A Fat Perspective, the podcast we talk about bodies and what happens if we don't live in the norm. And with me today, I have the ever so fabulous Raquel Velez. She is the founder and CEO of Alpine Parrot. And Alpine Parrot is very special because it is one of the very few outdoor apparel retailers that serves bigger bodies.
So happy to be here, Jen.
I'm so happy you said yes because as someone who lives in a bigger body, it is tough to find outdoor apparel.
So hard.
I'd love to know how you got started with the idea of creating Alpine Parrot.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's important to start at the beginning, which is to say that I did not grow up in the outdoors. My family's from Puerto Rico, and I grew up in New Jersey. And I say that because it's important to acknowledge that, for a lot of immigrant families, the idea of voluntarily sleeping on the ground outside in the cold is not the definition of success. Usually that's a choice that's thrust upon you, not a choice that you get to make. And so there's a lot of inherent privilege around choosing to spend time outside. And that's not to say that I didn't enjoy being outside. I would go on what my family would call nature walks, right? Like we'd go and we'd check out some stuff.
What's your ethnic background then?
Yeah, my family's from Puerto Rico, so I'm Latina. Yeah, no, it's all good. And so eventually, meaning in my late 20s, early 30s, I actually started going outside more. I actually learned to ski, which I call skiing my gateway sport because it was so weird and different for me. I was like, no, Puerto Ricans are allergic to snow, obviously, buying into the stereotypes. And I completely and totally fell in love with it. And when you start a new thing, you don't tend to buy all the gear that you need for your very first time. You usually kind of start with whatever you've got. And then as you are convinced that, yes, it is going to be worth it, especially a sport like skiing, which is so expensive. I learned to ski in sweatpants under rain pants and a hoodie under a rain jacket because that's what I had. I was tired of constantly falling and having snow go down my backside. So I eventually was like, okay, I should probably invest in a pair of snow pants. And when I went to my local retail store, couldn't find anything that fit, right? Shocker.
Well, actually, out of curiosity, because on screen we can't tell how big somebody is. What's your, at that time, what was your size? What made you such an outlier?
Yeah, well, so I have been I'm definitely on the smaller side of the fat scale. I'm now probably about a 16 or 18. At the time I was a size 14 or 16.
At a size 14 or 16, you couldn't find snow pants.
Exactly.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there going, people in my community are generally bigger. I don't understand why this is so hard. And so I was hilariously, the same weekend I learned to ski, I also learned to sew because I was tired of buying jeans. I love wearing jeans, but I couldn't find any jeans that fit either. And so I was like, well, how hard could it be to make my own jeans? I should learn how to sew. And
sounds like a big weekend.
Started making a pillow.
Yeah.
And then worked my way up. But that actually was my gateway into learning how to sew, learning how to make clothes for myself, learning how to make my own patterns, learning how factories work. And long story, just a bit shorter, I eventually made the connection of, okay, I can make clothes. I want to go outside. Let's make outside clothes. And let's do it for more than just me. Number one, 68% of American women are sizes 14 and up.
I'm laughing because, and you said when you went to look for things, it was hard to find at a size 14, 16. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, okay, you're literally leaving 2/3 of potential money on the table. Okay. And then the other factoid is less than 20% of outdoor apparel is made in plus sizes. It's such a huge disparity between who's out there and who's giving them the clothing that they need to get out there. And well, this seems like an obvious business plan, like make clothes for bigger bodies and just make that happen.
So, just out of curiosity, because why do you think it's so hard for retailers to do that if they see that there's such a huge slice of the market that they haven't even tapped into? Like, only 20% of outdoor stuff is made in plus size.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of a complicated answer, but it ultimately comes down to a chicken and egg problem, in
Mm-hmm.
that for a long time the outdoor industry kind of had their set idea of who went outside, and so when people started saying, "Hey, there are more people out there than the ones that you think go outside," so then the brands started making clothes. They actually did try, emphasis on air quotes, try.
We should talk about how they try because
Yeah,
it's always really
yeah,
interesting.
we
But
should.
yeah,
But ultimately, when they tried, they did a bad job. And then, so when people in bigger bodies went to try on those clothes, they were like, "This doesn't fit. I'm not going to buy something that doesn't fit." And so then they walked away. But then all these brands had all this excess inventory of stuff that didn't work, but they didn't hear that it didn't work. All they heard was nobody bought it. And so then
Mhm.
their argument was, well, if nobody buys it, it means that there's nobody out there, that maybe bigger bodies don't like going outside. And that is completely false. It is a bad conclusion to make, because the premise, the initial conditions, if you're an engineer or scientist like me, are false. Like, they're wrong. It's bad data to start with. You're like,
Mhm.
no one bought it, therefore they must not exist. No, no, no. No one bought it because it was bad. It was
Yeah.
bad. So,
So I love that you brought that up, and because one thing that a lot of people talk about, and when I talked to Marina Peridot Robe, she mentioned this, that the fit is
mhm.
what is the most challenging when designing plus size clothes. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree with that. I mean, I think one of the things, and forgive me for going really technical here.
Please, because this
But
is something that people do not understand. And I
yeah,
want to circle back to like profitability because I think that's really important.
yeah,
So please
we'll
get
get
technical.
yeah, we'll get there. So the reality is that in bigger bodies, our bodies change in different ways as our sizes increase.
Mhm.
Okay. And like, I'm going to be really careful here. I am making zero judgments on any scale whatsoever. I am being purely technical. Um, when bodies grow in size, in the straight sizes, right? So from a size 2 to a size 4, it's pretty well understood how those bodies change. And they tend to change in a fairly linear fashion. But once you get past a size 12 or 14, and there's always exceptions, there's always,
Yeah.
gray areas.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
in general, people start to change in different ways. So from like a size 14 to a size 16, some people will have more booty from one to the next.
Hmm.
Some people will have more belly from one to the next. Some people will have more, um, because we're going with these types of words, some people will have more booby, right? Like, they'll have like,
Yeah.
chests will change at different
Yeah.
rates, bellies will change at different rates, hips will change at different rates. And so it's nonlinear. And so you can't just make the same assumptions that you made at straight sizes. And because so many of these brands started with, say, sizes 0 to 12, I mean, you ever wonder why it's called extended sizing? It's because they were like, oh, shoot, we should add some more. So they just added more to the end. Um, and you can't just take what science you were using for the straight sizes and apply it to plus size. You can't do it that way. And so that's actually where it all breaks down. That's why it was wrong, right? They basically tried to take a size 6 and
Like
and
multiply it by two and then make it a size
yeah,
four.
make it a 12 and multiply it by 4 and make it a 24. And it's like, that's not how that
Well,
works.
yeah, I noticed on your website you had like for each pair of pants, you actually have two different fits.
Yes.
Is that why? Because you have like one that's like more like rounder and one that's straighter.
Yeah, so we call them mountain fit and river fit,
Yeah.
and so mountain is for folks with a little less belly and a little more booty. River is for a little bit more similar belly and booty. We're actually working on a third fit, which we're going to call canyon, which is for people with more belly and a little less booty. And because I'm a very scientific person, so I went out and tested all of our stuff and
Mhm.
found you can't just have one shape because people come in different shapes in addition to different sizes.
And is that more apparent in the plus size range? Because I feel like I've talked to stylists who say that even in the straight size range, like every body's different.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely. It's available. Like you see these variations in bodies at every size. They just tend to be a little bit more pronounced at the bigger sizes, I
Mhm.
think, because again of the non-linearity. When you're in straighter sizes, I have friends who are like a size 8 and they're like, I have a big booty and I can't find any clothes that fit. And I'm like, I totally understand what you're talking about. You need to find the brand that has used you as a fit model. Let's take a step back and actually talk about how apparel
Yeah.
is made from a very,
Okay.
very high level. Because I think this will also help a lot of people
Yeah.
understand what's going on. So when a brand decides that they want to make some clothing, the designer has a vision in their heads of a person, a specific person, probably someone that they've brought in, who is what we'll call a fit model. This is the epitome of the brand's vision of who goes outside in their clothes or
Yeah.
who
So it could be like I brought in Ashley Graham to give somebody a, or
exactly.
maybe I brought in a Tess Holiday. Like so, two totally different body shapes and sizes, right?
Exactly, exactly. And so what they do then is the designer will create a pattern that fits that body perfectly.
Hmm.
So perfectly. And we already know that everybody is different.
Yeah.
So there's literally only one person on the planet who will ever fit perfectly in anybody's clothes.
That hold on. I think we need to highlight that. So for everybody out there who's feeling bad that the clothes don't fit, guess what? It's okay because there's only one person that looks good in those pair of pants, and that's whoever
Yes,
they designed it for. Okay.
exactly, exactly. And then what they do is they take those patterns after it's perfectly fitting that person, and then they go through a process called grading, which
This made it
basically
up
is an
for-
algorithmic way
Yeah.
of defining all the other sizes. So they
Hmm.
take this pattern and they'll basically, I mean, it's all done algorithmically now, but old school, you draw a grid
Yeah.
on the piece of paper of the pattern. You cut along the lines and you spread the pieces apart to make the bigger sizes and you overlap the pieces to make smaller sizes. And so if you start with a size 6, which is where most brands start,
Ah.
um, and then you try to, you know, pull these pieces apart, and go up to a size going to a size 8, not a big deal. There's not a ton of distortion there. But once you go up to a size 28, forget it. Like if you've ever walked into a shop and tried on clothes that were supposedly made for your body, but the neckline was too wide, the sleeves were too long, skinny jeans on the mannequin or somehow wide leg on you, it's because it was poorly graded. They were working with a
So
body that is
so this sounds like complicated math. So then how do you know then who their fit model is, right? Like how do you know? How do you know like if I were to look at like not your daughter's jeans or I'm just trying to think of certain more like universal standard is another like more inclusive brand. How do I know who they base their stuff off of, you know?
yeah, you kind of can't. And
Sorry.
no, no. I mean, and it's a good question, right? Because you want to be like, well, how do I know if this is
Yeah.
the right thing for me? I mean, usually, if they put their clothes on human bodies and take photos of them, aka their ads and marketing, you can usually see what kind of shape is that person.
Yeah, but that's also not reliable because you can do so many things in pictures. Like with a
Totally.
literally, if you have like a safety pin, you can make anything look good. So
Oh no, that is totally true.
yeah.
Totally true. Now, the thing about Universal Standard, and the thing also about Alpine Parrot, is that neither of our two companies only rely on a single fit model. We
Mm.
actually use multiple. A universal standard is notorious for having one fit model for every two sizes. So that's how they're managed to at least ensure that they're not distorting the pattern too much between sizes. For us at Alpine Parrot, we start with my body, but then, and the reason for that is because I quit my job 6 weeks before the pandemic. And I couldn't talk to any fit models. Like
Yeah.
there was no opportunity. I was like, all right, I guess I'm my own fit model then. Um, work with what you got.
Yeah.
And but then what we do is we take every single size that we create
Hmm.
and we will put them on real human bodies and we will see how that goes. We will adjust our grading to make sure that we are serving as many people as we possibly can while still being relatively mass market.
And since you make technical gear, right? This is we had a conversation before this, and we're talking about clothing, especially in this realm, serving function, not just form. So what are some considerations that you took into creating these pants? Well, you don't just do pants though, although pants are your main thing, I think. Am I wrong?
And no, you're totally right. So pants, we started with pants and
Mhm.
then we added flannel shirts and we're going to continue growing our line from there. But yeah, our hiking pants. So a lot of things went into the different considerations, right? Like um, a perfect example is the fabric. Unfortunately, a lot of brands they have this vision of how much a garment should cost. And so, in an effort to keep that cost down despite using more fabric, and fabric is the most expensive part of any piece of clothing.
Really? More so than the labor?
Oh, sorry, there's also the labor, but I meant like just in terms of materials.
Okay.
The labor is going to be relatively the same no matter what size you're making,
Hmm.
but the fabric costs, between a size 2
Yeah.
and a size 30, it's going to be different. You're going to have more fabric in the 30. In order to maintain a lower price per unit, they're going to use cheaper fabrics.
Yeah.
And that really sucks, right? And so I was like, I'm not going to compromise on fabrics and I'm not going to compromise on construction. That's another thing that they can do is they can
Hmm.
remove some of the accessories, some of the trims, like maybe fewer pockets or
Yeah.
maybe, whatever. Um, so I thought a lot about what kind of fabric do we need to have a really technical experience or a technical product that still provides a long-term fulfilling experience for our customer. And so for our pants, for example, our fabric is breathable because we sweat, quick dry
Yeah.
because who knows what kind of elements you're going to be encountering,
Yeah.
and then also abrasion resistant because my thighs touch.
Oh, you mean chub rub?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like chub rub happens, and for me, all of my pants, regardless if it's fashionable or outdoorsy or whatever,
Mhm.
that inner thigh is the first place where everything starts to fall completely apart. I made sure
Yeah.
that that was not going to happen, right? So lots of considerations happen when thinking through all of our clothes. Um, for our flannel shirts, we also have multiple fit styles. We call them coastal and forest, and it's based off of how much room do you need in the chest. So
Mhm. Mhm.
you'll button up your flannel shirt all the way up. For many of our customers, they've never been able to do that before. And I'm like, I got you.
Oh yeah, I have a lot of what is it? Property in my front coast, my chest area, and it is hard to find button like like that pop.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. The little gaping in the buttons is so annoying.
So when I remember like looking at one thing that was really cool about your pants is you have a lot of pockets.
Yes. Yes. 5 pockets. Every single one of them has to fit a cell phone. As far as I'm concerned, it's not really a pocket if it can't fit a full cell phone. Like,
Well, you don't believe in those shallow jean pockets where you can
no,
barely.
those aren't pockets. Those aren't pockets. Those are design elements. They're just for fun. They're not actually functional at all, and I can't handle it.
But it's nice to see that your clothing is functional because I've talked to many what is it, women activists about this, and a lot of people feel very very strongly that the way women, specifically women's clothing is designed, is a absolute form of subjugation for women.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, there's some really fascinating history of fashion articles
Mhm.
that if you have some time, read some of them. But it's like women originally had pockets before men did because, well, they had these like pockets under their skirts so that they
Yeah,
could
they were these drawstring pouches you tied on,
exactly.
and then yeah, I like historical fashion too.
Yeah, no, totally. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. And then it was, the patriarchy who decided that once women started wearing pants, well, in order to keep the sleek physique of the woman's form, you got to get rid of the pockets because when you put things in it, it gets bulky and that's gross.
Really? That's why? Well, I'm
That's
probably
why. That's literally why.
they
That's
wanted
why.
women to have like a nice shape.
Yes. It was all about the shape and you're like, "Come on, we worked so hard to be able to wear pants again." Um or for the first time, and then they got rid of our pockets and it was like, come on. So now pockets are a form of protest. It's how we stick it to the man, taking our own pockets.
I think comfort is probably another form of protest because
Absolutely.
so many, and I don't know if people say it anymore, but I grew up in the 90s, and in the 90s was a lot of like, do you care if you feel good if you look good?
Yeah, totally. Totally. I
So
mean, you were either grunge, in which case you could wear whatever you want, and, Janko jeans was another thing, or you could try to be fashionable and try to like be like Kate Moss, who was so like that was the what was it, the
well, do
heroin
you
chic.
remember the ridiculousness of the low rise?
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, the low rise jean is
Because it's like
still
you sat down, and I mean, what those jeans didn't really support any type of movement.
no, they were awful. And low-rise jeans is one fashion thing that has stuck around way too long. It needs to go away. I'm over it.
It's not functional.
It's not functional. I mean, I have a big booty and I do not need everybody. And actually, I don't even care if other people see it because it's just what it is. I just don't want to be cold. And when, air goes down my backside when I bend over, I'm cold. This is about me and my personal comfort.
I think about like low rise jeans. Traditionally, the aesthetic is also super tight. So because if it's super tight, it's hard to move around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I also think of heels as like, what is it? Subjugation. I know, and I might get flack for this because I'm like, yo, like heels are like painful to walk around in.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
pretty, right? You get those nice. Oh, wait,
Yeah,
Let me
this
take that back. Is it pretty though? According to who, right? But like
yeah,
it gives you that line that people want,
yeah.
right?
I mean, I think it's important to always acknowledge though, like who are you doing it for? If you're doing it for yourself, all the more power to you. Own it, and love it, and
I
yeah.
I do want to challenge that though,
Mm,
because I feel like when we say we do it for ourselves, like, can we really? Because we grew up in a society where our aesthetics, how what we think looks good, what empowers us, has all been taught to us by external forces, right? We watch media, we copy, we do all these things. So then when we're like, I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible to do things for yourself. I think we just really gotta pay attention to where those messages are coming from. Because if I'm like, I feel good in this, like, who told you that looks good? Like,
mhm,
so, like when you're wearing heels for empowerment, like where did you get that message? And is that really what you want?
mhm. Well, I mean, and I think that that's again the deeper message there is know thyself.
And let's like acknowledge human nature, right? We all want to belong. We all want to be accepted in society. It's part of like how we are as animals, like in social creatures. That's fine. It's just like when it's just really, like you said, being aware of why we're doing things and where do we get the message, and do
Mhm.
we agree with that? Is that good?
Yeah,
Is that healthy for us? Or is that empowering for us?
yeah, yeah. I think we can. I think there's multiple sides to it,
Yeah.
and so it's important to just kind of let people work through that because it's a very complicated thing. I don't think there's
Oh, it's
any
not easy.
just
We're
like
not going to solve it in a 2-minute conversation.
no, no, we're not.
I wanted to touch on something you said earlier, which is like clothing as protest.
Hmm.
So you said your pockets are protests on your
Yes.
pants. Are there any other ways in which you've put in little design elements that made your clothing a protest?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so every single one of our clothes has like a little pop of color in addition
Mhm.
to like the main fabric. And that is, it's my way of saying I'm not going to lessen myself and my presence in the world. I'm
Mhm.
not going to fit anybody else's expectation of what I should or shouldn't be. And honestly, when we think about like, there's like a deeper idea here of I'm here whether you want to see me or not, you know? And so like our pockets, for example, have a splash of color on them. Our zippers are a different color. Um, and you could hide them if you wanted to as the wearer of the garment, but it's still there. It will always be there. And just like this idea of we go out into the world and there are expectations put upon us, but at the end of the day, we are still our own selves.
Mhm.
We can decide how much of ourselves we choose to show or don't show, but we are always still ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that's my little way of that's me being a designer. Look at me.
You
Sometimes
know,
I can be.
the one thing I real that when you were explaining that, it made me think of is this one woman who was like, you know what, I'm here.
Hmm.
I'm allowing myself to take up space. So it's almost like when we put on one of your pants and we look at the color, it's a visual reminder that hey, you deserve to be here. You don't
Absolutely.
have to hide your body in all black. By the way, is basically what's available for fat bodies is black pants.
I know. You know what, Denise? I did not want to make any black pants. I did not want to. I was like, no, I will not do black. And yet, when we did our Kickstarter, people were like, I need black. You can't just not give me black. And I was like, fine. If we hit a certain amount on our Kickstarter, I will make black pants. Sure enough, the last day, I was like, okay, good. We're not going to make it. We're not going to make it. And then somebody on the very last day pushed it over the edge.
Like no.
Like, no. So we made black and we have these really cool green highlights all over it. And let me tell you, black is our worst selling color. It makes me so happy.
Black is what we've come to understand as quote, and I quote, the
Yeah,
slimming color, the
exactly.
invisible color.
Yeah,
Even like comedians joke, like, oh, black makes me look so thin. Like
yeah,
that's what we associate with black. So
yeah, yeah,
I'm so
exactly.
happy that your customer is like, you know what? We're
Yeah,
like, it's like a protest. We're not going to hide our bodies in black.
yes, exactly.
So I wanted to ask you about the profitability, right? Because that's the number one argument against making plus size clothing. It's like, a, you don't have a market, which you just said is not true, or and then you're not gonna sell enough. And then the other thing, which let's talk about, is you make active wear. So the other myth that comes along a lot is, guess what? Fat people don't move. Is
Hmm.
that true?
Not
Talk
even
to us about
remotely.
this.
Yeah, no, it's so not even remotely true. I have now, gosh, I have sold enough units of clothing that I can tell you that is so not true. We have one of my original fit testers uh climbed Kilimanjaro, right? Like she was like, "Oh yeah, no, I should have I wish I had these on Kilimanjaro." I'm like, "You climbed Kilimanjaro? Like that is so badass." At the end of the day, you want technical clothing to keep you safe and comfortable, right? Like leggings are great, don't get me wrong. I freaking love leggings. Leggings will only take you so far. And when you want to take it to the next level,
Yeah.
suddenly there's nothing available to you. Like leggings will not take you to the top of Kilimanjaro.
The other thing I was thinking about when I was thinking about like the type of clientele you serve is that the outdoor space
Hmm.
is not super inclusive depending on what sport you do.
Yeah.
Um, I'm thinking specifically around like the haters, right? Like people are such haters. Like when I spoke about how I felt snowboarding pants were non-inclusive, people were like, "Well, you know what? You need to change your body. The mountain doesn't need to cave to you."
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, as you were like, do you run into haters?
Yeah, I mean, I've been incredibly fortunate. I have not run into haters. And I think that's because the haters aren't really thinking about clothing. Like they're just too busy hating on people who are complaining about clothing. I don't know. It's weird. Um, and so, but like we do get haters. That does happen. And it's usually people who are hating more themselves
Mm,
than others. Like we had a Facebook campaign at some point where people were like, "Oh, but what are you saying? I'm plus size? Like I used to be plus size, but then I worked really hard to lose weight to be a size 16. But you're telling me that size 16 is still plus size, so I'm not good enough?" And I was like,
yeah.
I didn't say that. I never said anything like that. I just
Mhm.
said we serve sizes 14 and up. That's what we focused on. And so it was like there's so much self-hatred that's what we're seeing more of than any actual hatred towards us and what we're
Yeah.
doing.
And that's really unfortunate
It
because
is.
where did people learn that?
Yeah.
Clearly not from themselves.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And your sizes you serve 14 to
30.
nice because usually plus size is like to 20
Yeah, I
or
know.
22.
I know. Yeah, we started with 14 to 24, but that was
Yeah.
because we're a small brand. We could
Yeah.
only do so much. But I will say I need to know who wants more because I can't make things and not sell them. Like we're still too small of a brand to even
Yeah.
be able to get away with that. So,
So if you're above a size 30 and you want something, then I
yeah,
think it's time to email Raquel
yeah,
or
yeah,
contact Alpine Parrot.
yeah. Let us know. Like we need to know that so that we can serve you. Otherwise, we will assume you're not there. We will assume you don't exist. I know that that's not true, but yeah,
So it's like if you need help, just ask, and then something could happen. The other thing that I think happens a lot, and like the society has taught us that a fat body is not one you want to be in, and it's like you're always in transition, right?
yeah,
Like if I'm fat, then I don't want to be fat. So, and one of the things that happens is then we buy things that cheaply so that we can wait till we're in our final form.
yes.
So then, because your pants aren't cheap, right?
No, they're not cheap. I mean, our hiking pants are $139, which it's pricey. It's totally pricey.
Do you find that people are making these investment pieces, or is it just because, or is it resistance? People, well, I'm just gonna wait till I drop a few more pounds and then I'll buy my pants.
Yeah, so it's been really interesting. So, there are people who are like, "Oh my God, pants that fit. I'll pay whatever."
Yeah,
No problem, right? Like they're
yeah,
like, I will give you the moon." I remember one of our fit testers early on, she was like, "I would never pay more than $70 for a pair of pants." But when she put on the pants, she was like, "Oh my God, I had no idea that this was even an option. I would pay double." I was like, "Well, good news." um, so that was a thing, right? We're not seeing a ton of people who are like, "Oh, I'm going to wait until I'm in my final form." If they do, they don't tell us. Um, but there's a lot of people who are starting to figure out like, this is the body I have now. I want to go outside now. Let's
yeah,
get
not wait.
right. I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait. Um, so yeah, so I think people are cluing into it. There are a lot of people who are like, "Oh my gosh, this is just too expensive. I can't even imagine." I'm like, "You know what? We can't cater to everybody. We can't make this cheaper."
Well,
Believe me, I've tried.
well, yeah. The other thing that I think people don't know, and I myself have occasionally experienced it, and now that I'm getting to meet more people in spaces that actually create things for fat bodies, it's
Mhm,
like when something is made specifically for your body, the fit
mhm.
versus something that is not made for your body, the experience is very different.
Yes. Yes.
And
It
it's
is.
like honoring myself now and investing in myself now. And, and if your body changes, like I'm sure the clothing can be changed.
Yeah, absolutely. You can change the clothing. I mean, maybe you're outside at the return window and that's a thing, but like someone else could totally love your pants, right? Like love your clothes. They can love your clothes just as much as you loved them and you can find other options. Um, it is it is, I think, a love letter to yourself when you buy clothes that fit you,
Hmm.
regardless of the size. And I really want to point this out. Every single brand has a different definition of what a size blah is because as we
Mhm.
talked about, the fit models are all different, right?
So,
So
yes.
if you wanted and I hear it all the time. People are like, but I want to know that if I buy a 2X in this brand, that it's going to be a 2X in the other brand and a 2X blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I get the convenience of that. But if we truly believe in DEI, we can't have that.
DEI, diversity, inclusion, correct?
Exactly. Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Hmm.
If you really want to support every single human on the planet having the opportunities to exist as they are, we can't ask every single brand to have matching size charts because then we'd have matching fit models, which means that it's all the same person. And do you want
Hmm.
one person who can fit over all of the brands and nobody can fit on anything?
Yeah.
Or do you want, some people to be able to fit in different brands? And this is why I'm not particularly competitive. Like I'm a very competitive person, but I'm not competitive about
Mhm.
other plus size brands because we're all catering to different segments of the population
Yeah.
so that everybody can be served. I don't want to serve only one tiny segment of the population. I want everyone to have their joy and their time
Yeah.
literally in the sun.
Have you had like customer stories that have just moved you so much? Like they
Oh,
come back and
yes. Yes.
is there one particular one that you're like, oh, I.
Gosh, I've had so many. I've had so many. All of them end in tears.
Ah,
Happy tears, right? So like,
inclusion. This is the power of inclusion, right?
yes, it really, really is. I think, um, I hear all these stories about people crying happy tears because they finally had clothes that fit their bodies. But probably the one that sticks with me the most is it was very, very early on. She was a fit tester for me, and she was the first one who was willing to go on a hike with me. And this was during COVID, so we're like wearing masks and everything.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
was like, here, try on these pants. Like I'd like put them down, run away, and like
Mhm.
hand sanitizer or the whole thing. And we went
Right.
on a hike together, and I was like, I need you to wear the pants while we're on our hike, and I want you to tell me all the ways in which it's wrong because I need to
Mhm.
fix it, right? Like you can't hurt my feelings if you're
Yeah,
talking about this thing that I'm building because I'm an engineer. I need to know
yeah.
how to make it better. And the whole time I'm sitting there going, so how's it going? And she's like, I got nothing. I got nothing. I don't know what to say to you. I have nothing to tell you. And I was like, this is not helpful. And then later that day after our hike, we had a great time. We are now incredible friends. But later that day, she texted me and she goes, oh my God, Raquel, I figured it out. And I was like, what? And she was like, the pants, there was nothing wrong with them. The reason why it was nothing, like I couldn't tell you anything, was because for the first time in my life, I didn't have to think about my clothes. I could
Oh.
just enjoy being in nature. I could just enjoy being with a friendly face and just having a good time. I didn't have to think about the pinching, the pulling, the squeezing, the chafing. I could just be. And that was like, oh, I guess I'm changing the world now.
No, but that's true. Like, I wonder, like, for people who don't have access to clothes that fit, like, what would life be like if your clothes didn't bug you, but they just were
Yeah,
there?
yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Like what could life be like if you could just enjoy being out there and knowing that you are protected by the clothes that you wear, that they are a
Mhm.
statement of your inner self, because style and fashion, it's a thing. Everybody deserves the right to have style and fashion. Everybody deserves the
Yeah.
right to get outside safely and comfortably. Everybody deserves to feel to have clothes that fit is really the basics.
I'm gonna tell my story, and that's not really, but like my friend was like putting on. She was getting really beautiful couture jewelry from Dior. So I was like, great, I want to go. I love pretty things. And she goes in, and then like the necklace was too tight and all this stuff. And the guy looks at her, and he was like, listen, it's not you, it's the jewelry.
Hmm.
And I have never, ever heard anyone in Dior or in any of those, like, places that serve mostly skinny people
Hmm.
say that don't hate on your body. We didn't provide you stuff that's good enough.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was just, so it's like, I love that. Like your clothes are like, they don't do that. Your
Yeah.
clothes are there to serve the body.
Yes. Yes. And our clothes should serve our bodies, right? Like
Not the other
I
way around. It's like if something doesn't fit you, it's not your body's fault. It's the clothes. They
yes.
didn't. So then I'd love to ask, because I love stories. I think the way to change the world is to listen to stories. If we have like a open listening and we share stories, and how can we be haters, right? Like, so in this journey, because you're a human in a body and
Mhm.
you live in the patriarchy, and you have somehow figured out a way to really love your body and yourself. How did you get there? Was there a moment, or was it just like, how did you develop this wholesome love and honoring of your body?
Yeah. I mean, I have to be honest. I'm a work in progress. I think we all always are.
Oh yeah.
I think the thing that really shifted me from constant hatred to the sometimes love has been to embrace the idea of body neutrality.
Mm.
That in any given moment, my body is just as deserving as any other body of love, care, affection, health, food,
Mhm.
rest, all these things. It's not, I don't have to love my body every day. I don't have to like my body every day, but I need to know that it is just as deserving and it is my body and it has done great things for me. I think I went on my first backpacking trip last summer, and I was at the back of the pack every single time, right? Except on the downhills. For some reason, I was really good at the downhills. I was like at the front of the pack for that one. But on the uphills, oh gosh, I was struggling. But you know what? I made it to the top just like everybody else. I just got there a little bit later. And that was a huge moment for me because I still got all the benefits. I just needed to take a little bit more time.
How did you embrace the concept of body neutrality though?
Um, oh gosh, that's a great question. I think I heard it first from somebody on Instagram
Mhm.
and they were like, you don't like body positivity can be difficult. And there's also a thing called toxic positivity, right? Like, sometimes people are like, I have to be happy. I have to love my body. I have to. And you know what? Sometimes your body lets you down. Sometimes it does. Like you have expectations for it and it doesn't do what you want it to.
Yeah, like when you're past 30, you wake up, you're like, oh no. Oh no. Why is everything in so much pain? Dang it.
Oh yeah. No, there are times where I get up from my chair and I'm like, why does my foot not work? What is happening?
Yeah.
It happens.
Our bodies break.
Yes. Yes. And you can be disappointed in your body. You can be upset with it, but that doesn't reduce its deserving of love, care, rest, nutrition, movement, like
Mhm.
I can't actually pinpoint to the exact moment
Yeah.
that I like found that peace because I think it's a constant struggle,
Mhm.
but I still have this underlying understanding of, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. Like, I don't love how this garment looks on my body, but again, it's not my body, it's the clothes. Even if it brings up some traumas, past
Mhm.
traumas and things like that, and I can hear people, telling me to lose weight or whatever, but I can also hear that and I can send it back. I can let it go and be
Yeah.
like, yeah, I heard that, but I don't have to listen to it.
Mhm. It's like actively choosing like spaces, things, people that tell you you and your body are good and are more than well enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will also say, since starting this company, I have learned more about body neutrality and body love because the community has lifted me up and taught me so much
Mm.
about how to exist in these spaces. And let me tell you, there's not a lot that's like fat joy. When you are surrounded by a whole lot of fat joy,
When you say fat joys, you mean like the joy of fat people?
I
Okay.
I mean, being in a space surrounded by fat people and we get to just put down the barriers of like or put down the shields that
Mhm.
we all have to put up every day.
And I think that that's like that sense of safety
Yes.
is what a lot of marginalized communities feel when they're together. And we're talking about body size. That's one, but there's so many others.
Oh, totally.
But
Absolutely.
imagine what the world could be like if we could create that for all of us,
Yeah.
like
That's
all the time.
I know.
That's so beautiful. And
Yeah.
I just want to thank you because I think it's it's wonderful the work that you're doing
Thank you.
because no one takes on retail unless it's something that you really feel passionate about. And thank you for serving a community that doesn't usually get served in an outdoor space.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I thank you for what you're doing too. You know, you're bringing light to all these different areas, and I know you do get a lot of hate on the internet,
That's all right.
and yet you push through, and that takes so much courage. And So thank you for the work that you're doing. At the end of the day, we're going to change this world. We're just doing it in different ways
We're doing it.
together.
We're doing it one pair of pants at a time, and I'm doing it one conversation at a time. That's
Love it.
all right. Thank you so much for coming today. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I hope that people listening, if you are somebody who wants to go to the outdoors and cannot find pants, please hop on over to Alpine Parrot because
Yes.
Raquel will get you pants that fit.
I will do my best. I will do my
Yeah.
best.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.